For most of human history, murder had no witnesses, no police, no courts, no prisons, no written records, no newspapers reporting what happened, just silence. And yet, somewhere in the distant past, one human being looked at another human being and made a decision that would change history forever. To kill. Today, murder is so common in stories, movies, and history books that we rarely stop to think about it. But there was a time before the First War, before kingdoms, before cities, before money, before religion as we know it. A time when humanity lived in small groups, scattered across a dangerous world. And somewhere in that forgotten age, the first known murder may have taken place. But who was the victim? Who was the killer? And perhaps the most disturbing question of all, why did it happen? To answer that question, we have to travel back thousands of years before written history, back to a world that looked nothing like our own. Imagine waking up 430,000 years ago. There are no roads, no houses, no farms, no governments. Human beings survive by hunting animals, gathering plants, and protecting themselves from predators. Every day is a struggle. Food is never guaranteed. Injuries can be fatal. A broken bone, an infected wound, or a harsh winter can mean death. Life is brutally simple. Survive today. Worry about tomorrow later. Most people imagine early humans living peacefully in harmony with nature, but reality was far more complicated. These ancient humans competed for food. They competed for territory. They competed for mates. And just like modern humans, they experienced fear, jealousy, anger, revenge, and conflict. The emotions that exist inside us today did not suddenly appear with civilization. They evolved long before cities ever existed, long before the pyramids, long before agriculture, long before recorded history. The human brain that feels rage today is built from the same evolutionary foundations as the brains of our ancient ancestors, which means one uncomfortable possibility becomes difficult to ignore. If humans carried anger, fear, and aggression hundreds of thousands of years ago, then violence probably existed too. For decades, scientists debated this question. Were ancient humans naturally peaceful, or were they just as violent as we are today? The answer remained a mystery. Because violence disappears surprisingly quickly. Bones decay. Bodies vanish. Evidence is destroyed by time. A murder committed hundreds of thousands of years ago leaves almost nothing behind. Almost then, deep inside a cave system in northern Spain, researchers made a discovery that shocked the scientific world. Hidden beneath layers of earth and stone was a site known as Sima de los Huesos. In English, it means the pit of bones. What scientists found there would force them to reconsider one of the darkest questions in human history. How far back does murder really go? Among thousands of ancient bones, one skull stood out. At first glance, it looked ordinary. But when researchers examined it closely, they noticed something chilling. Two nearly identical fractures above the left eye, not one injury. Two, and both appeared to have been caused by the same object. The same force, the same attacker. What they were looking at may have been something extraordinary. Evidence of the oldest known murder ever discovered. The skull belonged to an ancient human ancestor who lived approximately 430,000 years ago. That number is almost impossible to comprehend. The victim lived so long ago that mammoths still roamed parts of the earth. Modern civilization was unimaginably far in the future. Even Neanderthals had not fully emerged yet. And yet, the evidence preserved inside that skull appeared strangely familiar. Scientists began treating the case like a modern homicide investigation. The first question was simple. Could these injuries have been caused by an accident? After all, life in the ancient world was dangerous. People fell, rocks collapsed, animals attacked. Perhaps the victim had simply suffered a tragic accident. But the fractures told a different story. The two wounds were located in nearly the exact same area above the left eye socket. More importantly, they had slightly different shapes. This detail turned out to be crucial. If a person falls and strikes their head, the impact usually creates a single injury. But these fractures suggested something else entirely. Two separate blows, delivered one after another. Researchers used advanced imaging technology to study the skull in extraordinary detail. What they discovered made the mystery even darker. The injuries showed no signs of healing, none. The victim did not survive for weeks, or days, perhaps not even hours. The blows were likely fatal. Whoever struck this individual may have killed them almost instantly. Then came another disturbing realization. The wounds appeared to have been inflicted from the front. This was not a surprise attack from a predator, not an animal attack, not a falling rock. The victim was likely facing the attacker. Imagine that moment. Two ancient humans standing only a few feet apart, looking directly at one another, perhaps arguing, perhaps fighting, perhaps competing over something we can no longer understand. Food, status, territory, a mate, or maybe something else entirely. Whatever happened, the confrontation ended violently. One individual raised a heavy object and struck, then struck again. The evidence suggested intent, not survival, not self-defense against a wild animal. Intentional violence directed from one human toward another. For many scientists, this was the most shocking part of the discovery, because it pushed organized interpersonal violence far deeper into the past than many researchers expected. The skull itself could not tell the entire story. It could not reveal names. It could not reveal motives. But it revealed enough to show that human conflict existed hundreds of thousands of years before recorded history. And there was another mystery, an even stranger one. The body was found deep inside the pit of bones, alongside the remains of many other individuals. Why were they there? Some researchers proposed a remarkable possibility. What if these ancient humans were intentionally placing their dead inside the cave? If true, this would represent one of the earliest known examples of human burial behavior. Think about what that means. The victim may not have simply died. Other members of the group may have carried the body into the darkness of the cave afterward. Perhaps they mourned. Perhaps they remembered. Perhaps they understood loss in ways surprisingly similar to us. And if that happened, then this ancient murder becomes even more haunting. Because it was not merely an act of violence. It was an act of violence witnessed by a community. A community forced to live with the consequences, just as humans do today. But the deeper scientists looked into humanity's past, the more unsettling the picture became. Because this skull was not the only sign that ancient humans were capable of extreme violence. As researchers continued studying ancient human remains around the world, a pattern slowly began to emerge. The skull from Spain may represent the oldest known murder ever discovered, but it was almost certainly not the first murder that ever happened. It was simply the first one that left evidence strong enough to survive hundreds of thousands of years. Think about how many stories have been erased by time, how many arguments, how many rivalries, how many moments of anger. Entire generations lived and died without leaving behind a single written word. Most of their lives disappeared forever. Yet occasionally, a fragment remains, a broken bone, a stone tool, a scar preserved in fossilized remains. Tiny clues from a world that no longer exists. And those clues suggest that violence has accompanied humanity for a very long time. This should not surprise us. After all, humans are not separate from nature. We are part of it. Many animals compete for resources. Chimpanzees fight over territory. Wolves battle rival packs. Lions kill competitors. Conflict exists throughout the natural world. Humans inherited many of the same survival instincts. The difference is that humans evolved something else as well. Memory, planning, cooperation, and imagination. These abilities allowed us to build civilizations. But they also made violence more complex. A lion attacks because of instinct. A human can attack because of jealousy, because of revenge, because of fear, because of ideology, or because of a decision made long before the act itself. The same intelligence that allows humans to create great works of art also allows humans to harm one another in ways no other species can. That uncomfortable truth has followed us throughout history, from ancient tribes to modern nations, from stone tools to advanced technology. The tools changed. The emotions often remain the same. And yet, there is another side to this story. Because if violence is part of human history, so is compassion. Remember the injured dog cared for by Ice Age humans. Remember the ancient individuals who survived severe injuries because others helped them. Remember the possibility that members of a community carried their dead into the pit of bones and laid them to rest. The archaeological record contains evidence of both cruelty and kindness, both aggression and cooperation, both conflict and love. Perhaps that is what makes the story of the first known murder so fascinating. It is not simply a story about death. It is a story about what it means to be human. The victim who died in that cave 430,000 years ago was not a king, not a warrior whose name was recorded in history, not a famous leader. We do not know their name. We do not know their voice. We do not know what dreams they carried through their short life. But we know one thing. They were human. They feared danger. They struggled to survive. They lived among other people. And on one forgotten day in the distant past, they became part of a story that would remain hidden for nearly 500,000 years. A story uncovered only because two fractures in an ancient skull refused to disappear. The oldest known murder may never tell us exactly what happened. The killer's identity is lost forever. The motive is buried in time. The witnesses are long gone, but the evidence remains, silent, patient, waiting in the darkness of a cave, reminding us that human history is not only a story of invention, exploration, and progress. It is also a story of conflict. And perhaps the most unsettling realization of all is this: the distance between us and that ancient killer is not 430,000 years. It is only a few choices. Because the same species that committed the first known murder also built cities, wrote poetry, explored space, and learned to care for one another. The story of humanity has always contained both possibilities. And it still does. That ancient skull is not merely a relic of the past. It is a mirror. And if we look closely enough, we may still recognize ourselves staring back.